So now we have another session and another interesting session on women in technology, skilling, upskilling, reskilling. So let me welcome the panelists for today. So we have Saurabh Saxena. Saurabh is a veteran in education technology space. He has been involved in providing career solutions to engineers and mentoring the next generation of software developers. Together with the team at Scalar Academy and InterviewBit, he has created a platform that helps engineers achieve their highest potential. Welcome, Saurabh, onto the stage.
Thank you, Kanika. Looking forward to having an amazing session with you guys.
Thank you. We are also looking forward to it. Okay, so we have the next panelist for today. We have Gandhali Samant. Gandhali is currently working with GitHub, leading developer ecosystem and market engagement charter. She has spent around 20 years in IT and she has worked with several MNCs in India and abroad. Gandhali, welcome onto the stage. Gandhali, you can share your screen. Oh, hello. Hi, Gandhali.
Hi.
Thank you. Welcome. So going to the next panelist, we have Shwetha Lakshman Rao. Shwetha is R&D manager at VMware with 15 plus years of industry experience. Holds a patent on high availability from USPTO. Being a tech enthusiast and an active innovator, she has researched and presented her papers in national, international conferences on technologies like IoT, blockchain, cloud, and pursued her PG diploma in machine learning recently. Welcome, Shwetha, onto the stage. Shwetha, you can start sharing. And so going to our next, we have Supriya Menon. She heads learning services for VMware India. Her role, she's responsible for driving and growing VMware education business directly, as well as though the partner ecosystem. She is responsible for managing, developing, and growing the education footprints of VMware in India. Supriya Menon. And the last panelist, we have Venkatesh Sarvasiddhi. He is head of eScale India under the Digital India initiatives to empower youth, leads the innovation practice in engaging with startup ecosystem, partnering with industry to foster growth by building scalable and sustainable technology skilling platforms to support nation's largest Skill India program, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, which are set up across various states and districts in India. That's Venkatesh Sarvasiddhi for us. These are the panelists for today. I think Shwetha and Venkatesh will be joining shortly. I'll just check on the backstage. Thank you.
Thank you, Kanika. A very good afternoon to everyone.
Thank you, Kanika, for the introduction, and a very good afternoon to everyone.
My pleasure.
Great. So I think we have had a few really amazing sessions right now. I think we just had a session by Mr. Sandeep. Great. So maybe I'll just talk a bit about myself and then we can just go around the room and share some background in addition to what Kanika has already shared and what sort of gives us some perspective to share here on reskilling, upskilling. So my name is Saurabh, as Kanika mentioned. Thanks, Supriya. So my name is Saurabh, as Kanika mentioned. We have been running an upskilling platform by the name of InterviewBit since 2015. At the moment, we have about 1.5 million users who proactively use the platform regularly to become better software developers. In 2019, we also started a classroom program which is called Scalar Academy. It is backed by Sequoia and Tiger Global, and we have been able to make some dent in the industry by upskilling about 5,000 developers and getting them opportunities across companies like Amazon, Flipkart, Walmart, Swiggy, Zomato, and pretty much all the top brands. Uh, while we are doing all of this, we have been working very closely on diversity hiring challenges. We have been organizing a lot of activities to empower women by, for example, we did an event called Codex especially for women, Codex Women, where we wanted to make sure that we are enabling women to come up front and participate in challenges and showcase their skills. In addition to that, we have also been seeing a steady growth in the total number of women participating in tech jobs since work from home has started. There has been a 100% jump in women in tech. Hi, Venkatesh.
Hi. I'm sorry I got a little late because of the tech glitch there. Yeah, please continue, Saurabh. Yeah, you were explaining.
Sure, sure. So being in this space where we are both in the upskilling, reskilling domain, as well as helping all the top product organizations hire talent, we have some information, some data points, some interesting updates on what's happening and how women are taking charge and how women are making the most out of these opportunities, which I would like to share during the course of the call and maybe add some value during the discussion.
Sure. I think that's nice. And of course, we would love to know more about Scalar and the kind of work you're doing. And also the startups which are emerging in this space, especially in skilling from a tech perspective. So it would be interesting to know that as we move into the session. Welcome you all for such a nice forum today. And this is something very close to my heart, as also this is one of the key imperatives even the Honorable Prime Minister keep touching upon. He shares, there's a very interesting insight at NSDC we have discovered in the due course of the workforce development, especially on the diversity workforce development. We always talk about a 5 trillion economy, and we will be achieving that very soon as a country. Now, if I look into a very interesting statistics that's been provided as part of a research, if the 30% of the workforce, women workforce, join back the ecosystem, maybe they have left that in their early ages, or they have left after their graduations due to their family situations. And if the 30% of the workforce join back the entire ecosystem of India would be a $30 trillion economy. That's the power of women in this country. So, with this kind of an insight, I would love to kickstart the forum today. We have all eminent women. Leaving Saurabh and me, we can see it's all dominated by women mostly. We will start with Shwetha and understand from her. She's been part of this chapter, Women Who Code. She's led these chapters, and she's also actively growing these chapters in India. So, what does this chapter mean to many women who are present? What does it mean from empowering them? How does these chapters function? Where all you have presence, and also how do anyone who has nothing to do with this can become a part of it and start their journey, especially benefiting in terms of trainings, forums, opportunities, connects, making them employable. If you can touch upon this, I think that would be an interesting set of conversations, which we probably, as we flow into the next set of speakers, would be interesting for us to know, and also for an audience perspective would be very, very good from an awareness perspective. Maybe you need to unmute yourself. You're on mute.
Hello.
Shwetha, are you there? We lost the video there. So in interest of time, maybe we should move to the next speaker as the tech team fixes that issue, and then we come back again to Shwetha. So moving on to Supriya. Supriya leads the learning. She's the director for learning VMware, and she's been in this ecosystem for long, understanding technology, the upskilling areas. So Supriya, if, in interest of time, moving on to you, we'll again come back to Shwetha. So what are the points that are needed to consider while planning an upskilling program? Especially, we heard about the Tara initiative. There is a very interesting initiative around which even NSDC has partnered with VMware in getting back who have taken breaks. So would love to understand how can one plan their upskilling, and also the initiatives at VMware in this process. It would be great if you can touch upon Tara a little bit and help the audience about that initiative. Again, Supriya, you are on, I think you're on mute. You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Yes, thanks, Venkatesh. Skilling today is extremely critical, especially if you're working in an IT environment, because there is constant upgradation of technology. And unless you're in par or you are abreast with the latest technologies, you're left far behind. What the pandemic has thrown out is that we've got a lot more advantages today because of the flexibility in terms of learning. You will see that learning has evolved. In India especially, most of us were very, very prone to or used to having an instructor in front of us and sitting in a physical class. We never ever thought, while the West did move on to an online version of training much far ahead than we did in India, because of the situation that we were in and where we couldn't be physically in an environment, we've all adopted, and this adoption has been very fast. I think it took maybe a couple of months. I remember last year, first half, we saw a real dip in people adopting training because they were skeptical about how the online delivery would work. But today, there's a lot more acceptance of this format, because today that is the only format. So right from schools to colleges to upskilling, we see there are a lot of platforms. I think Saurabh has spoken about what his company has to offer, but there are a lot of opportunities today for us in terms of learning. And I will touch upon Tara. So Tara is a program where we are looking at helping women who have taken a break. Today in India, we have the maximum number of STEM educated women passing out. But unfortunately, almost 50% of them, they kind of do not join the workforce. Or even if they have joined the workforce, they kind of move out after the 7 to 8 years gap. And most often than not, this is because the women have the additional responsibility of either managing a home, somebody, the elders at home, or you bring up your own family, bring up your children. And these are some of the reasons why women are forced to take a break. So Tara was a brainchild of our leader in APJ. He thought this was an opportunity for VMware to give back something to the community, because like I said, it is not that there are not enough. We have these aircrafts flying over us, so it becomes a little difficult to talk then. So it's not that there are not enough women who have passed out a STEM graduation through that stream, but it's also the fact that we don't have enough of them continuing their work. Like I said, for various reasons. So Tara program is kind of to help women to come back, for people who have taken a break, to come back to the workforce. Like I said, skilling is extremely critical. And if you're on a break, what happens most often than not, that the technology has also become obsolete from the time that you were last working. So we kind of give all those women who have been on break and who want to kind of restart their careers a gentle push towards helping them skill on our VMware technologies. In fact, we've even tied up today with Intel, and we offer some of their programs too. So a lot of programs available free for women who want to kind of get back to the careers. So that's the initiative that we have from VMware.
That's nice. And in fact, what we have seen is in the partnership what NSDC has with VMware, we love to extend this to a lot of women from tier 2, tier 3 cities. Especially there's a lot of need in the current ecosystem. If you have seen in the pandemic in the last 2 years, IT and IT enabled services have grown a lot because the usage is increasing. So that also brings an opportunity for a lot of women to come back into the ecosystem. And the other thing is, today is a virtually operated ecosystem. So a lot of women who have issues in terms of traveling, being in a different city, and their work being in a different city, those constraints are are getting removed because of the virtual ecosystem. So this again provides a very interesting opportunity for them to come back and contribute into the ecosystem. So moving on to
add
Shwetha,
on, we've had just one more point that I want to. We've had almost more than 12,000 women taking advantage of this program. So if you have friends, colleagues, ex-colleagues who want to get back to the workforce, please do talk to them about this program.
Sure. And also, as we move to the next part of the conversation, it would be great for all the speakers to share interesting, informative links, so that the audience can benefit from it, whether it is Thara or maybe initiatives what a GitHub has or a Scalar has, or other even interesting links which so that the audience can take benefit as we go through the discussion. Moving back to Shwetha, I think the problem is fixed now. We can hear you. So, coming back to the question, would love to understand more about the initiative Women Who Code chapters and how individuals can really benefit from this.
Sure, Venkatesh. So Women Who Code is a non-profit organization based in about 122 plus countries with about 3 lakh members across the globe. In India, we have chapters in Delhi, Mumbai, Pune, Chennai, Hyderabad, and Bangalore, as you are witnessing most of the participants from here. So our intent, our vision is to have encourage more and more women to grow in their technical career ladders, so that we have better representations as technical leaders, executives, founders, VCs, board members, and software engineers in the industry. So what we basically try to do is we host the meetups, which will be like monthly, and some of the sessions will be bi-weekly as well, where we host kind of technical sessions, workshops, grow 360-degree skills, which covers different emerging technologies, interview preps, soft skills, and leadership skills, which are required. And when we do analysis, we actually do the analysis of what is the need of the hour, and based on that, we design these kind of courses. So for this year, we have planned a couple of series like open source series, cloud series, and security series as well. Anybody interested to join Women Who Code, we will be posting the meetup links. It's as simple as that. They can go and join the meetup link, and all the events that we host are free of cost. As we mentioned, this is a non-profit initiative, and that's how none of the content or the events will be charged. So this is an opportunity for women and even the other genders to join and learn something from the community and give back to the community as well.
That's really nice, and I think we're happy this initiative is growing, and it should grow further to many cities, and many women should actually participate and leverage this kind of forums and platforms to empower themselves from skilling and employability perspective. Moving on to tech leader Gandhali. She's been with Microsoft. In fact, she used to be my buddy when I was with Microsoft a few years back, and she's throughout has been in the technology world. She's been a coder, programmer, a data scientist, and quite an aspiration to many women who want to pursue that field. So having spent more than a decade, Gandhali, at Microsoft, wherein you are in the middle of so many things happening, so many product launches, technology moving into different spectrums altogether. Now you're with GitHub. So how do you see the journey overall, being an technology person and also inspiring many students when you were actually doing forums? I remember long back during Imagine Cups and all. So how do you see the technology has been shifting, and how women should adopt to these? For example, India has a large workforce, and there are many women who are contributing to this, and that's a good sign. But at the same time, as the technology changes, today we are talking about cloud, tomorrow we may talk about a different form of an AI, and things like RPA and all are catching up. How do you see your journey and also your message to a lot of viewers today?
Thank you, Venki. This is going to be a little longish answer, but I'm going to actually tell about my own experiences here. So, coincidentally, today I finished exactly 20 years in IT. 20 years back on 3rd September 2001, I joined my very first job in Godrej Infotech as a programmer. And my very first training or the language that I worked on was Unix and COBOL. Many of you might not ever looked at COBOL or, heard about it maybe, but that's where I started my journey in IT. And very quickly, I went on to become a web programmer with Java Beans, JSP, SQL Server, and so on. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story just to show you how the technology transformation happened over last 2 decades, right? So I became a Java developer, and then I went to US to do my masters, where I used Java as my like a primary language for all my assignments, submission, even my thesis. And then I joined a company which was a Microsoft shop completely. So I had to let go of my Java skills and completely reskill on C Sharp. Next 10 years were very good because I was just staying a Microsoft developer and quickly growing and becoming mature in that technology. And the way I say that Marathi is my mother tongue, I say C Sharp is my programming mother tongue, because that's where I worked a lot. And then I came back to India and I joined Microsoft, and everything started changing. um, Incidentally, in Microsoft, C Sharp wasn't enough. I actually had to quickly upskill myself on mobile development. This was 2013 when Microsoft was doing a lot of Windows Store apps and Windows Phone apps. So next 2 years, I worked on many big names in India such as Money Control, LIC, Times of India to bring their apps on Microsoft Windows Phone Store. And I was very happy to be a mobile developer. And in 2014 Feb, Satya took over as the CEO of Microsoft, and the entire focus shift to cloud. Now, we all had to literally upskill ourselves overnight to be cloud SMEs, because now we were talking to customers about Azure Cloud, different services, having those conversations, not just having the conversations, but helping them migrate to Azure and build on Azure, right? So next 4 5 years, it was all Azure. We upskilled very quickly. I did a lot of different projects. I did blockchain. I did IoT. I did one of India's first, AI use case in insurance, which went in production with ICICI Lombard. And it was just like, a path that I had to keep taking. Every 6 months, I had to learn something new to keep that job. So that has been the journey. But I want to share how I did that journey, and what I think that will be more interesting is there are three things that I realized that helped me quickly upskilling and staying relevant through 20 years of my IT journey. First was passion. So if you really, really like coding, and if you really like technology job, that helps you to kind of, push yourself forward and keep learning new things. Secondly, I think it's the most important thing to never say no to an opportunity. Many times you will get an opportunity, or your boss or manager will come and tell you that this is something new that we want to do. Are you up for it? And you might not know even the ABC of that new technology, but don't say no just because you don't know it. Those are the best opportunities in your career which will push you forward. When I moved from mobile to cloud, and then to IoT, and then to AI, and today I'm doing DevSecOps with GitHub. Those were the opportunities that I didn't let go, even though I didn't know anything about those technologies. And third is take help will always be available. You have to really find it. So I'll give you here an example. In my Microsoft journey, there came a point where our team realized that we were working a lot with only Microsoft developers, and we were not really working with a lot of open source developers. And our skill sets were also very Microsoft focused. So that time, my manager went and hired a couple of people in my team who were very open source focused, and they were supposed to be our mentors. the moment when I first met them, I told them that, you know what, I need your help. I need to upskill on PHP. I need to learn Linux. I need to learn PHP, Node.js, all these things so that I can have meaningful conversations with my customers. But I need your help. And in return, I will teach you everything about Azure that I know, because I knew Azure, right? So it was kind of a give and take at that time. But don't be shy in asking help. Uh, you will always have to, if you want to stay relevant in a very, very technical role, you have to keep upskilling. And the fourth thing I just came to my mind, I want to share is, don't use every moment that you get. So when I was upskilling on Azure, I remember I used to go to customer meetings and I used to watch videos on phone. Many times traveling from Goregaon to New Bombay would take 2 hours, and I would finish one entire session on IoT or AI, right? So I always use that time to learn something new. So that was my fourth point. So yeah, be passionate, never say no to an opportunity, take all the help that you need, and use every minute that you get to upskill. If you do that, I'm sure you will stay relevant in technology, and you will continue to reskill and upskill yourself.
Thanks, Gandhali. That's really interesting. I think a lot of our audience would be excited to know this, to challenge times, to learn new things, and to be adaptable to the changing scenarios. And would again certainly come back to you on, interesting things on open source. But now moving on to Saurabh, the startup era, edtech has been really on the high gear right now. A lot of interesting things have happened. A lot of unicorns getting added there. And you would also be a potential unicorn, I would say. Saurabh is happy to hear that. So, on the journey of becoming a unicorn. So, Saurabh, I want to hear from you. Your platform Scalar is doing fabulous work in terms of deepening the coding skills across the Indian youth, either in colleges or out of colleges or in the workforce, all three. And especially from a women perspective, girls in tech perspective, you initiated a program called Scalar Include. Would love to hear, because there are a lot of relevant audience today in our forum who would love to understand your Scalar Include program, which is primarily to empower girls in STEM.
Great. Sure. So just to give some background, I think like we spoke about in the beginning, right? Scalar started off as a platform that can help developers get better, and not just get better by theoretical knowledge, but get better by actually understanding what the industry needs. We work very, very closely with the employers, very closely with the likes of Paytm, Cred, etc., and understand what they're looking for, and then come back and train people on those things, right? Now, what we also did some time back was we started a Scalar Include, like you said. The Scalar Include program is aimed at enhancing female participation in India's tech workforce. What we did was that we put aside a significant amount of capital to ensure that every student, every woman who reaches out to a Scalar and wants to join the program can be offered merit-based scholarship, right? We have put aside enough amount of money to at least help 1,000 women this year alone, right? And in addition with this, because just the scholarship would not in itself cover the entire gap, we also are organizing a lot of exclusive coding contests in collaboration with some of the top tech companies in India, only for women engineers and women coders, right? What we are trying to do is we're trying to build a very, very safe space, very comfortable space, and an approachable space for women to reach out to. For example, we are also onboarding some of the top women developers from the industry as mentors. So when a woman comes into the program, they have the ability to be very comfortable and talk about even gender-specific challenges, right? For example, let's say if a young developer enters the workforce, she might be facing some gender-specific challenges that she would not be able to discuss with a senior developer if he is not a woman again, right? So enabling this entire ecosystem, one, by giving a lot of access, by ensuring that if they are interested, they do not face financial challenges. Second, by also ensuring that they get to know about these challenges by working with some of the top tech employers, right? So that there is enough news around it, so that there is enough information around it, that it is easy to find, right? And then after that, ensuring that once they actually come in, they get all the right support to actually have a very conducive growth, right? That is the whole and soul of the Scalar Include program that we are doing. what we are seeing also is that it has actually had a lot of impact. So last year when we started, last year when we were looking at the benchmark, for every 90 male students in Scalar, we had 10 female students, right? This year that ratio has doubled. So last year it was 90 to 10, this year it's 80 to 20, right? While in itself the number looks small, but it's 100% jump, and we are trying to exponentially increase that every year. That is what we are trying to do, and help the workforce get more women coming in.
That's really nice to know, and also your initiative to empower women on merit-based scholarships and helping them to get onto the platform and become future-ready for jobs. That's a very interesting thing, and we believe platforms like these will add a lot of value, especially in the pandemic scenario when colleges are going through lockdowns and organizations are working in virtual modes. They, community-based, technology-based learning ecosystem, which can be scalable, makes a lot of difference to the ecosystem.
Right.
Going back to Supriya, again back to you. From your perspective, your thoughts, because you're running Tara initiative, you're also actively looking into the space from a learning perspective. What are the problem areas and trends to watch out for? When we look at the immediate future of IT learning.
Okay. So I think one thing we need to keep in mind, and which I've kind of missed out mentioning earlier, but it ties up to this question also, is we need to understand what would be our end goal. What is it that we're looking at in terms of achieving at the end of? It's not just going to be skilling for the sake of skilling, but what is it that we are looking at? And then it also helps us uh, rethink on what career opportunities we are looking at, if we want to kind of move out from what we are currently doing. So skilling up gives you an opportunity. And today, because there are so many learning opportunities with a lot more flexibility than we had a few years back. So when I say flexible, we have a lot of ed companies coming up with trainings in bit size, so you don't need to be locked in for a few days for a particular training. Even VMware ourselves, we have our digital offerings just to address the demand today, which is in terms of flexibility. So a lot of flexibility in choosing what skill sets that you want to acquire. Again, always we should not lose focus on what is the end goal that we're trying to achieve, and create a learning path. I think today most organizations, most skill sets providers, they do help you create that learning path for yourself based on what is it that you want to achieve at the end. So once you have that in mind and you create your own learning path to achieve that end goal, uh, there is a plethora of options to decide what modalities of training that you are looking at. Of course, there is a downside to it also. Though we do have all the flexibility thanks to the online virtual trainings that is available, and the bit size trainings, what we miss out, I think, is the social aspect or the teamwork aspect of the learning. Sometimes when you're in a group, there is a lot of opportunity for you to kind of discuss and learn more and get into various aspects of a particular skill set that you're trying to acquire, because you would be debating around it. You would, and that will always, any healthy debate will always end up with understanding the product a lot more thoroughly. So today, unfortunately, we are very one dimensional in the way we learn, because it's a one-to-one method of learning. So I think that is a little bit of a challenge. I feel that holistic learning becomes a little bit of a difficult proposition with this today's way of working. So there is pros and cons. We need to see how we can balance it out, because I always feel that a healthy discussion, and evaluating and discussing and debating on any topic, be it something you're learning, be it any topic to discuss, will always bring different perspectives and only increase your learning at the end of it. So yeah, that those are my views on
Yeah, I think
the
that those are
future of
very
learning.
interesting views, from the future of learning and some challenges and how holistically should look at the platform and learning from different
Yeah.
resources, engagements, platforms, and not just one-to-one, but because also the current ecosystem opens up more of a social based engaged learning ecosystems, wherein we learn from different people, different organizations, and conversations are increasing across the social ecosystems of learning. Moving on the same theme to Shwetha, how does Women Who Code, you're seeing, the chapters growing and all of that. There's a lot of community-based learning, social ecosystem-based learning, which is happening, peer-to-peer learning, which is happening. For example, one individual from one organization in the earlier days used to learn from their bosses or within the ecosystem and within the organization. Today, you learn from different parts, and you engage on a social platform with startups, with SMEs, with large organizations. The learning, there's no boundary actually to it. So and there are interesting boot camps and hackathons which are conducted. You get different viewpoints. So would love to know more about your social angle, and also as a platform, what are you doing, and some interesting insights from the community based learning.
Sure. Um, First of all, the key success to learning is everyone should start small. Don't ever think that you're new to the technology. So, when I was presenting in AWS conference, one of the audience came to me after the session and he started mentioning that he's in a cloud domain and he's thinking of upskilling himself into machine learning. But then he has the fear that already there are so many people out there who are already working on machine learning. So, how would he outstand? So I think this is a common question which we end up getting whenever we are into some of these kind of conversations. So my advice to all of them out there is, see, some of them are already into a different domain, but then you already have the skill of, say, cloud or machine learning or any other technology. When you try to upskill, you have the flavor of both the technology and you bring the value to the organization as well as for your profile. And how do we get started, right? This is the one of the important aspect everyone looks for. So when I started with my innovation journey about 6 or 7 years ago, I started small, like attending conference, trying to understand what is happening in the industry. And that is how we try to design all these conferences, not just from Women Who Code, but we also partner with the as the community partners for different conferences that are happening across. There we will get to meet like-minded people who are exploring, researching around the technologies. Then start submitting the papers in different conferences, right? Initial few times you may fail, your paper won't get selected, but the best part is you get the feedback on what could be enhanced on it, right? And the best part of the community is everyone are there to help each other. They provide the inputs, they guide you through this journey. So in that way you will get comfortable with the like-minded people, learn new things, and it will surely help. Apart from these, there are lots of communities that are actually working towards a bigger and a better cause, like AWS group is there, VMware user group, Google developer group, women tech makers, lean in, and many more, right? Where all of these communities have that one end goal, that help each other out so that they grow better. Another better example that I can state is the Community Coach initiative by VMware India in collaboration with Women Who Code. With this, what we are trying to do is educate people, passionate people outside India as well. This is basically train the trainer model. As most of you may be aware, especially in the South Asian countries, it is South East Asian countries, right? Most of the countries, they prefer local language than English. So we did the collaboration with Taiwan last year, and we trained about 10 to 12 people in the community in English on virtualization, Kubernetes, and cloud. And you know what? The impact was so much that these set of people translated these content, the knowledge, into Taiwanese, and it reached around 4,000 people. That is the bigger impact that anyone can make, right? Similar to this, anybody interested in any of the technologies, anybody passionate to give back to the community can join us, join hands with all of us, right? And then help the next set of people so that we build a better community where everyone is helping each other.
I think that's an very nice way, and some examples what you gave are very, very meaningful. And of course, in a country like India, I was also looking at other interesting insight when I was talking to a startup in terms of how vernacular approach of using local language while teaching coding and programming really helps people. Because India has many languages, whether it's Tamil, Telugu, Gujarati, Hindi, Punjabi, Marathi. If we can add some local language context to coding and programming, I think that's another very interesting insight which we can see. So, of course, your platform would be experimenting with those and would love to hear more as we progress. So, Gandhali, going back to you, for many people who are here today in this forum, who are aspiring people to join industry or already in the industry or looking at reskilling, how do you see the open source and the opportunities in open source, and for women, especially from a technology field, can you throw some light on the open source ecosystem in terms of opportunities?
Sure, Venki, sure. So before I talk about that, I would just like people, our participants, to just put in the chat if they have ever contributed to an open source project. Just put yes in your chat. I just want to see how many women have contributed to an open source project. But I'll tell you this, I don't have any official numbers to quote, but we all know that women in tech are around, say, a quarter of the entire workforce. But if you look at women who are contributing to open source, that percentage is much lower. Again, no numbers, official numbers to quote, but the percentage overall is lower. And I think that's a significant gap which we should address. And there are a few things. So first thing I would like to address is why open source, right? I mean, why you should even think about it. So think about like what you were telling, Venki, right now, that they're having these local languages and all these contexts for teaching coding. There is a very nice project which has been started by somebody at Tech Mahindra. It is called BHAML, Bharat Markup Language, where you can create HTML code in 11 Indian languages. They have HTML headers and all. Imagine you as a developer contributing to something like this. How much recognition it could give you, right? So if you are starting to look at open source, first thing that you will gain by contributing to open source is just your sharpening of your skills, because now you are putting something that you write, your code, out in public for anybody to come and view and review and give you comments, right? Yes, it could be a little vulnerable situation for us, but that can also make you strong, and it can make you confident, and you can learn a lot. So simply think like the reviewers, the maintainers on some of the biggest projects, right? They check at so many things. If you have written the code, have you written unit tests? What is your code coverage? How you are storing secrets? How you are doing your CI/CD pipelines? All that is part of the review, and that will just add so much quality to your code that will help you again in your day job also, right? Because quality of coding is always needed. Secondly, as I said, it can give you a lot of recognition. I'll give an example. In my last role at Microsoft, I was an engineering manager, and I did a lot of hiring. And do you know how hiring works, right? You get lots of CVs. You look through those resumes. The one you like, you actually call them. But the trend is nowadays people are sending their GitHub links. People are sending their LinkedIn profiles. When there is a GitHub link on a resume, the first thing I do is I open that link and I look at the projects that they have done. That gives me so much better idea about that person as a programmer or as a developer than a 2-hour long interview will give me, right? So from that perspective also, it is building your skill set as well as it is building your resume. Contributing these open source projects, it's like an advertisement of yourself that I have done all this and it's all there out in the open, go check it. And the third thing is, if you see recent trends, there have been a lot of monetization trends on open source as well. So there are many big enterprises which are funding open source projects. There are a lot of open source projects which are actually converted into product where we have different SKUs which are like paid SKUs versus open SKUs and all that. So in fact, on GitHub, we are launching a new feature called sponsors, where anybody could come and sponsor a project that they like. So for example, I'm an enterprise and I'm taking dependency on an open source project and I want it to be maintained, I can just sponsor it. So there used to be this apprehension that, if I'm open source coder, how do I monetize it? That's not the case anymore. You have a lot of commercial monetization opportunities being an open source coder as well. So I think it's something that women should really, really start looking at and increase that percentage of developers, women developers contributing in open source. I think it will be good for the entire ecosystem.
It's really nice to know, and also your thoughts on how to monetize, and the opportunities to monetize is becoming bigger. And that's a very interesting platform bet for individuals who are looking at it. And Gandhali, maybe you can even share some interesting links if you have with the audience. That would be very nice, so that a lot of them would love to get in touch with you also later. So moving on to Saurabh, you're seeing in the pandemic times, there are a lot of opportunities that are created for women, especially who can operate from anywhere, who can contribute. There's a gig economy that is developing, which is more on projects, freelancing, workload based wages. The ecosystem is changing. How do you see this, and as a platform, as you're skilling, and what are the opportunities that come out in this kind of an ecosystem? And would also be great to hear from you, especially the youngsters who are there, who are in the process of learning and getting into the industry. What are the technologies they should focus on? Where you are seeing majority of the demand happening in terms of hiring is concerned in this ecosystem which is expanding.
Sure. So Venkatesh, thank you so much for that question. I would break it down into two separate sections, right? If I talk about specifically the gig economy, right? Recently, I think even Akshat Srivastava, one of the famous influencers, YouTubers, created a video of how different websites are popping up where you can just simply go upload your portfolio and start taking up gigs, right? There's a website called Upwork. Now on Upwork, you can go and you can pick up any software development gig that you want. All you need is a basic portfolio that software development, and you can build a website or you can build an application, right? That makes opportunities extremely accessible. Anybody who is looking for opportunities can find opportunities in today's day and era. The second big challenge that has been overcome is that multiple times when there are family constraints, multiple times when there are location constraints, women are the ones who are the most heavily affected, right? Men still have a lesser effect, lesser impact of these challenges compared to women. Now that in the post-COVID era, because companies have become extremely comfortable with anyone working from any location around the world, a lot of new opportunities have started opening up where women sitting in Varanasi, women sitting in Allahabad, women sitting in Dehradun, or anywhere in the world can actually apply for a job in Bangalore, can apply for a job in Hyderabad, Bombay, or even for that matter, US, right? The only thing that they need are the skills, where again, platform like Scalar, and there are a lot of other platforms that are coming in and helping them out. One of the recent studies that we also saw was 90% of the women who had to leave the workforce for some reason want to come back right now. But only 35 to 40% of them are actually able to come back because a skill gap has already been created, right? The tech industry specifically is moving at such a fast pace. If you step down for 3 years, 4 years, when you come back, you pretty much might lose out on a lot, right? You might not know what the current technologies are, what the current trends are, what the current languages are, right? And that's where, again, a lot of these skilling and upskilling tools and companies and startups come into play, right? The second thing that you mentioned, how how we are looking at an employer perspective, what are the skills that employers are focusing on, right? Now, the difference between the gig economy and working with an employer is in a gig economy, it's more about, okay, you're looking at small projects, you're looking at small websites, you're looking at a 7-day or a 15-day job. When employers look at hiring, they look at a very different skill set. They look at people who are really, really sharp at problem solving. Because let's say when you're working at a Paytm or a VMware or a Microsoft, you would be a number of different challenges would be thrown towards you, right? Very rarely would you be working on the same problem statement time after time. So instead of expertise on building a website, they look for expertise on problem solving. So any platform in the world that can help you sharpen your problem solving skills by throwing a lot of problems at you in a well-structured fashion is a platform that can help you out, right? So you need to be really good at problem solving. You need to pick up any one language. What happens right now is that people get distracted by, oh, I'm learning Java, but I heard Python is good, right? Or I'm learning Python, I heard Gojang is really good. So what you need to focus is just pick one language and really work on your problem solving skills. If your problem solving skills are at par, learning a new language takes a week or 10 days at max, right? So problem solving is what the most employers are looking for, and if you're really good at it, then you have a really big market and a really lot of opportunities that are waiting for you to come in, apply, and pick it up.
That's right. I think, focusing more on the problem solving thing, and of course language then becomes your choice, whatever you want to pick up in solving
Exactly.
that. I think that kind of a thinking is absolutely required, especially in people who are betting on technology and not looking at a very short term, but again looking at a little longish view is always important. Now I think in interest of time, if we can pick up some questions, if there are a few questions, maybe can we just scan through and see if we can answer some of them? So do just let me know if you can, because I'm just scanning through. Yeah, Shwetha, if there's any interesting question which we can pick from the...
Maybe in the interest of time, we can pick one of it.
Yeah. I'm just scanning through the questions. Also request panelists to just scan through in case if there's any interesting question which we can pick up and answer, that would be nice.
I think there's one for Gandhali, which is how can we get paid by open source projects on GitHub? How does that become a revenue source for someone?
Yeah, so I tried to answer it in one line, but I'll explain it a bit more. What happens is there is a feature on GitHub called sponsors, where there. So, for example, I'll give you an example. There is a project that you are contributing, or you are yourself an owner or maintainer of it, and it's a very useful utility, and many people are downloading it and using it now. It's in their interest for you to keep maintaining it, making sure the bugs are fixed, and it's all upkeeping is done. So that's where this feature comes in handy, that the people who are using your code can choose to donate some money, or sponsor is the word that we use. It could be just as small as $5 a month or something like that, but those sponsorship would come to maintainers. Now many times in big projects what happens is those maintainers get a lot of sponsorships, and they also pass on those funding to the largest contributors who are on those projects. Like if you look at projects like Magenta or projects like Upskilling, they are like huge projects, many contributors are there, right? But there are some who are really contributing to new features, contributing to a lot of bug fixes. So a maintainer or an owner of a project can decide to kind of pass on this funding, this benefit to the other contributors as well. So this is a feature. It's again very organic. You can always enable your project to receive the sponsorship, and but it has to be a project which is being used by people, and which people want to keep maintaining and using. And then there are always chances that you will get sponsors. There are many enterprises also who fund these open source projects, but that is internal. That is not like an openly available sponsorships. But yeah, there are ways.
Yeah, I think there is one interesting question here, from Bindya. How do we overcome the fear of failure? Especially since women, we have been always encouraged to look for stability. Maybe Supriya can answer this better, because she engages with a lot of women, especially from Tara and other initiatives. And this is something, maybe you can give it a shot, Supriya. So the question is, how do you overcome the fear from a failure?
Yeah, I read that question. I thought that was a good one. But I think it's a lot, it is within us, most of it. So I don't know if all of you know that when applying for a particular job, a man, if there's a JD given, if even 30% a person who are male gender is applying for that job, even if they have 30% of the requirements in the JD, they think they are good to go with that job. Whereas a woman, even if they have 80% of it, they still fear there's a gap of 20%. So I think it's intrinsically in us women that we feel we are still not there. A lot of the failure is in our minds. It's not really in the other person's eyes. So I think we should just be a little more forward thinking. We should be less hesitant about our capabilities. I think there's no doubt today that in terms of empathy, in terms of multitasking, etc., women do play a critical role, and which is why a lot of organizations are looking at bringing in the gender diversity. So the fear is not of negativity is within ourselves. Let's brush it aside, be positive. You come with certain skills. See how you can amplify the skills that you have rather than amplify what you don't have. So that would be my advice to the women who are looking at a positive thing. So don't let your fears down.
Yeah, I think it's
hope
not
I've
just
been
women. I believe in an economy like us, especially the ecosystem where we are in, we need to celebrate more of failure. That's a requirement. So by tendency, we only celebrate success, either at homes or either at colleges or either at workplaces. Celebrating failure should be an important aspect, because a lot of us come up with that mentality, and that's a tendency, right? Starts from the age of our early ages of schooling or parental backgrounds and stuff like that, wherein we always fear of losing things, or maybe especially careers, educations, and all, because the tendency, until unless you challenge your fear, you really can't grow in your dimension of your thought, in dimension of your execution, in dimension of trying new things. I'm happy to see that startups have started, 5-6 years back. The growth story, for example, you're happy to know there are close to 5,000 startups in the tech space as per NASSCOM. Out of that, maybe 1,000 succeed and remaining 4,000 may shut down. But at least having tried that model, they have achieved a lot of experience. They would have seen scenarios. They would actually, but for me as an advisor, if I have to look into, a lot of students, even in the Indian ecosystem, are only looking at very stable companies to join, large organizations, but not willing to experiment with startups. Maybe their parents are not willing, they are not encouraging them. I would say the next wave of jobs would be created by startups. The next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years will belong to the startup ecosystem. We have seen a very successful listing of a Zomato. There are many startups in the listing space, whether it is in fintech, edtech, health tech, and lot of these students who come out of colleges have the fear of failure, either working with a startup or starting something of their own. Slowly that is coming off, and we've seen at least the IITs and IITs, IIMs and all are experimenting with this model, like in Western ecosystem. I think once we beat this fear, and the best way to beat this fear is celebrate failure, because most of our organizations celebrate success. And I personally believe until as you fail, you really don't succeed, because you have to fail in one or the other dimensions as you're experimenting. That's very natural. So, giving that pressure to either women or students or anyone for that matter, that, we take failure as a kind of a big disappointment, that should not be the case. The moment we start celebrating failure, that fear goes out automatically, right? There's nothing wrong in failing. And a lot of successful, people, whether entrepreneurs or global leaders, they all failed in some or the other aspect of life, and then they really moved ahead. In terms of persistence is important, and organizations should always respect failure rather than taking it kind of a disappointment. I think that's an perception I have. Not giving up, absolutely.
And not giving up,
because failure is as normal as anything else. There's nothing wrong. In fact, I would advise, if an individual joins a startup and he fails, either as an employee or as a founder, he would have a better experience of working with large organizations, because he knows where things don't work in a realistic ground. I think that will also encourage a lot of our youth to actively come forward and be part of startups or that ecosystem, work for them. And I think celebration of failure is extremely important in a country like India, and that should happen across the ecosystems. That's my thing. I think in interest of time, I think we discussed various initiatives, from Women Who Code to what is happening at VMware from Atara. And we heard from Gandhali, the life of a women, especially in a technology world, and how they have to be adaptable. And from Saurabh, what are the new things happening and some interesting things at Scalar of empowering this. I thank each and every one of you for being here today. We are already over time. So if there are any questions, I think the moderators, the event moderators can help us, and we can revert back. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for taking out time. Supriya, Gandhali, Shwetha, Saurabh. and sharing your thoughts and encouraging our women to actively contribute, be a part, and grow in the ecosystem of technology. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for your valuable.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Venkatesh.
Venkatesh, for
It's
the
been a
forum.
pleasure
Thanks,
being
Supriya.
part of this panel.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.